The church's response to the ecological crisis, I think, has been lacking. One of the most cited papers ever in the Journal of Science, we see, it was back in the 60s, written by Lynn White, who basically makes the argument that not just has the church been passively complicit in the ecological crisis that we're seeing, but it's actually Christian theology that has caused the ecological crisis that we see. It was really a wake-up call, I think, to a lot of people of faith to realize that the church really hasn't been prioritizing creation care by any stretch. I grew up in the church. I heard sermons on all sorts of different topics all growing up, but I never heard a sermon in my church, or really until recently, any of the churches that I attended, on the church's call and the believers' call, the Christians' call to care for the earth. So, when we're looking at what has been the church's role in terms of creation care, I think the time scale that we ask that question on is really, really important. I think over the past few decades, maybe back to a century, it's been poor. It's been exceedingly bad. This has really been something that the church hasn't really thought about and the church hasn't really taught. But if we go back to ancient times, and even if we go back to the patristic teachings of the church fathers, this is something that's in their writing. I think one of the things that's important for folks that are interested in creation care to know is that this is not some newfangled reaction, some fad that's out there now that's like a theology that's just, fashionable of the time. But if we dig into the scriptures, and if we dig into the early church, we can see teachings that are there that talk about the creation being valued by God. I'm also encouraged with the newer generation of Christians that we see coming up in the church, that this is something that's more on their radar, that many young people in the church are interested in how they can flesh out this idea of caring for creation, to see that the Bible is not silent on this question at all, and that when we dig into Scripture, there are passages not just in Genesis, not just the creation story, but from Genesis and into Psalms and into Revelation, and just woven throughout the prophets and in the Gospels, that we can see that the church's call, the believer's call, is to care for creation. Too often our negligence towards creation is based on this mindset that it's all going to burn up. It's all going to go away, and I'm going to fly away and be in a cloud somewhere. I'm going through the pearly gates. That is not a biblical picture of creation. It is valued by God. And God doesn't make all new things. God makes all things new. It's a restoration of what's broken here on creation. It's not going to burn up and all go away. Passages that talk about this burning up is a purification. It's not burning to destroy. It's a purification of the renewed and redeemed creation. Now, just like God does with all his commands, he invites us as humans to walk alongside him in this role. Our call today is to continue to work towards the kingdom coming. Just as we preach the gospel to our human neighbors, just as we work with God to solve injustices in society, right? God asks us to take on that role. He's also asking us to take on this role of taking on injustices in the ecosystem, environmental injustice as well.